these players like Jimmy, Speed Kicks, and Joey, they have come over and they have said that yes, that mid to high level in Europe is way better than it is over in America. And I think that's important.
I know Nap said that.
Speed Kicks and Joey, they have come over and they have said that yes, that mid to high level in Europe is way better than it is over in America. And I think that's important to keep in mind when it talks about qualifying for Tekken World Tour, because the EU is a very, very competitive region. I think not the same as America, because if you look at the American
yes, that's what I'm saying.
Tournament, they're challenger events for the most part. You're going to be seeing, you know, Anakin, Jimmy, Joey, blah blah blah, Shadow, winning almost every single tournament. It's not the same in Europe at all because of the kind of region we have.
So it's this argument I hear quite a bit that in the US they have these god players, but everyone else, the average level is lower than EU. I hear this thrown around quite a bit, and it's pretty funny and amusing to me. And he just mentioned that a few US players have come to EU and said that our mid or high level, the average level is higher than in the US. I think Mr. Naps said this when he was interviewed at DAMA Germany. And honestly, I think Mr. Naps I think they're just being polite, to be honest, to me, because it's a little bit far-fetched to me to think that out of a vacuum, you get these god players. But they practice with weak average players, because US average players are weaker than EU. But so out of a vacuum emerges these god players, who are just one step above EU. No, those amazing players are shaped by an average higher level of play. It says to become a monster, you have to fight against monsters. That is the only way of becoming a really strong player. And it's like when we saw Arslan emerge. Some people said like, oh, he's just a genius anomaly. Pakistani scene is not going to be good. And it's like, you knew straight away if you fought two steps ahead, you know that, oh God, no, if he's that good, you know for sure he is sparring with some really, really good people. And that's the thing. It's like, no, the average level of play is higher in the US, most likely, because otherwise their top level guys wouldn't be a whole step above everyone else in the EU. They are sparring against really, really strong mid and high level players. That's how they acquire very high level of play. And some anecdotal evidence of Naps saying, oh, you guys are better at average level. It's like, I see that more as being a classy, respectful, and polite guy.
Like, for example, our best player, Super Akuma, someone like him will lose to someone like me in tournament, and that could therefore hurt his qualification chance, because I think Europe's a region where anyone can genuinely beat anyone.
You have to factor in the time frame. US top tier have been playing since forever. Now, you know what you should factor in? Fighting games are actually quite popular in the US. Street Fighter and Tekken, you know, it's compared to, you know, the countries of Europe where we play Counter-Strike, Dota, League of Legends, you know, there's no comparison. Fighting games have us, it's not like Asia or Korea, but they have, there's a fighting game stronghold in the US.
Our top 5 isn't infallible at all. You know, Asim, for example, he's 22nd on the leaderboard last year, came this close to qualifying, but he had a bad performance at one of the dojo events because, you know, of players that are just lowered.
Yeah, Evo is in America. The website Tekken Saibatsu, that was founded by an American, right? Or Shoryuken.com. All the big tournaments are in the US. Why is that? Because there's a lot of people in the US who love fighting games. Hence, you have a lot of people playing, and out of that, you get a higher average level, and then you get god players. I mean, 25% of my viewers are from the US. And then, you know what? Third place in terms of viewers is Pakistan. I don't get that many views from Europe because Tekken is just not a big deal in Europe.
down.
That's why our average level of play is lower, because we have a smaller player pool. It's just, you know, it's just common sense.
Still very, very good. Stopping him from getting there. If you guys understand my meaning, right? Like that's why EU players, you know, they don't have as much chance to qualify. Also as well, the America have more tournaments, right? And they also have the only Master Plus event. So
why do they have more tournaments? Because people give a shit about fighting games in the US.
They have more opportunity. They can perform
because they have a bigger audience.
Perform bad at one challenger or one masters event, but they have another event to make up for it. It's not the same in Europe. We also had 2 events taken away from us last year. There was 2 European events that.
Yeah, and it's like you gotta add in also that, you know, on the West Coast in the US, you know, California, you know, there was a pretty healthy arcade culture not too long ago, where they always had access to the latest Tekken games. You know, EU and arcades? It's like, you gotta have to go back to the 1980s. It's like, you can't compare these regions at all.
Well, complete outside of Europe, like Dubai and the South African Tekken Tour Challenger were both classed as European events, which, you know, just hurts us as a region at the end of the day. I think it's important to keep these things in mind when we talk about, you know, exposure and why players are, you know,
yeah, it's like Draxar is saying in the chat here, you guys don't understand how hardcore the SoCal Tekken scene was. I do. I remember watching videos from like 2005 where you saw huge arcades with hundreds of people playing Tekken offline. Why do you think Pakistan is so strong, or Korea? Huge offline scenes. That's what Anakin went through. Lil Majin, they all went through that huge arcade boot camp. There is no such thing in the EU.
You're seeing more of certain players. Because one thing as well, when you look through the main man's chat, you could kind of see this very weird anti-EU sentiment being spread in a weird way. And because I remember there was one comment in particular where someone said something like, when was the last time you saw a European player in top 8? And I didn't know what to make of that.
I love it dramatic.
I mean, what is he talking about, right? Like, first of all, when was the last time there was a tournament because of COVID? And second of all, like, what tournament are you talking about? Like, you know, you probably won't see a European player at the top 8 of CEO, because newsflash, there aren't many, if any, European players there.
So when you say when was the last time you saw a European in top 8, you shouldn't be offended by such a comment. That was quite that was pretty non-toxic in my opinion. But he's most likely talking about, you know, the absolute biggest tournaments. So maybe EVO, maybe Tekken World Tour.
Going to traveling over to America for CEO. But, you know, if you want to look at our events, our Master and Challenger events, yeah, there we are. There's the European players right there in Europe. That's weird. Like, I think this, you know, anti-European thing has been spread for too long. And I guess it's my job to sort of, you know, defend our...
This anti-European thing, I mean, there is a huge anti-USA as well. Land of the free, you suck, piece of shit. EU guys do the exact same thing. It's
region
goes both ways,
as it were. Like, I'm not really a fan of like the baseless, it's not accusations, but baseless, I don't know, baseless somethings that the main man seemed to be throwing out at certain points.
Is it really baseless though?
Like, you know, he mentioned Kane and Ferguson, players like this, but it's like, you have to keep in mind, these are still very strong fundamental players. Like saying, you know, Kane uses his built-in defense with Yoshi, when Kane in Trench is one of the most fundamental players you can find in the entire region. This is the guy who's beat Knee in tournament.
Takes him to the wall. This is the one thing where I did want to correct myself. Again, it was off the cuff. I didn't. This was not meant to be a video. I didn't know I was going to be, you know, clipped, and then someone was going to commentate on what I said in a video. But he has a point here, K-Wiz. I was too happy to paint Kane and Trench, for example, or Fergus with especially Kane and Trench, I feel, with this brush of Boonga Boonga. And this ties into EU players playing a bit of Boonga characters, but there's no, and I've always said this about Kane and Trench, he's He's the most fundamental Yoshi you'll ever see, and he's so successful doing it. He doesn't play... I mean, iMusician has amazing fundamentals, but he plays a little bit more party, painting the painting with Yoshi, whereas Kane & Trench plays very grounded and has a very defensive and fundamental approach. So Kane & Trench deserves a lot of credit.
Like, I don't know where you're going when you say certain things like this, right? Like, I don't know, maybe the main man hasn't done his homework, he hasn't watched the tournaments. I genuinely don't know what to say, but
I feel like I do my homework. Our players are like 9 out of 10. US players are 9.5. The US players are better than the EU players. That doesn't mean that our players are bad. On the contrary, we have amazing Tekken players in the EU, like some of those guys I mentioned previously. Incredible Tekken players. It's just that the US players on average are just stronger. But the differences aren't big. But in certain cases, the differences are almost become astronomical, because going from 9 to 9.5 on this scale, it makes for... It's one hell of a difference, you know. And again, I just gotta mention, like, guys like Anakin, I feel like he doesn't get the recognition he deserves. He's, I mean, what? Where would you put him right now if you were to make... He would be on my top 10 list of Tekken players globally right now. Easily. Maybe top 5.
It's very interesting to see someone from Europe saying these things, and I want to know why it is that, you know, he believes certain things like this, right? Because if you look at any European event, you know, most European challenger events, the top 8 is almost completely different every single time, because that is the level of competition there is in this region. Someone who is relatively unknown within the region was able to beat Low-High in tournament at the mix-up last year. Like, I don't know where... I just don't know where these things come from, right? Like, I'm not saying the European... Right, why I'm focusing so much on EU versus America is because I think that's what the main man focuses on the most. And I think it's the statement I take issue with the most, right?
But didn't he agree with me at the start and said that the US players are better than the EU players? So how is my opinion completely baseless? Am I really pulling it out of my ass, or?
Because, you know, I'm not arguing the EU is the best region. EU as a region is not better than, you know, Japan, Korea, Pakistan, etc., right? But it's still a competitive region, and I think, you know, you need to put some respect on the region. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not
saying
saying
just some
we're
three guys walking around, you know, for any old reason, right? I think it's important to, you know, understand that, I guess everything's very, you know, America centric. You know, I guess Bandai Namco US are probably the biggest Bandai Namco branch. You know, they do a lot of the publicity. They push the events so hard. Their scene is more important. So
their scene is more important because it generates a mountain of cash compared to the EU market. There's a much greater interest in fighting games in the US than there is in EU. That's why you have all of these, not big corporations like Bandai Namco, but these grassroots guys, the little people, starting tournaments, becoming tournament organizers. Many states in the US. And that's how some of the biggest tournaments were born in the US. It was not because of companies coming in and funding them. It was because those grassroots people started uber big events that turned into these huge things, and then suddenly companies are interested and go in with funding. So again, I just want to say that you simply cannot compare EU to US like this. It just doesn't really work, in my opinion.
I think some people just don't understand logistics of travel as well. That's one thing I've seen very often. Like, there was no European player that was top 8 at, you know, combo break, and it's like, yeah, because it's difficult. You know, like, as much as European players aren't traveling to America, Americans aren't really traveling to Europe that much as well.
Yeah, and they would travel all the way over here if we had some big tournaments. But to have big tournaments, you need a big interest in the game. You need a big audience. And a lot of people who are interested in competing in Tekken. And the EU just doesn't have that. We have some people, absolutely. We do have communities. But compared to the US, it's just... yeah, there's just simply no comparison.
You know, when some of their European players have come over, like Chungy, who came to Greece, he didn't even make it out of pools and stuff like this. This is stuff you have to keep in mind. The region is not just some random free region of aggressive random hop kickers.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying we are 9 out of 10, and US is 9.5, and then Korea, Pakistan, Japan, 10 out of 10. That's all I'm saying. You know, all of our top players are amazing. Like, when you see Sephi Black play, it's like beautiful defensive play. But when you start comparing him to, like, Avaishani, Anakin, Arslan, you know, I don't feel like people should be offended by this. All I'm saying is, like, you are amazing, but that guy is just slightly better than you. Or when I talk about Anakin, I'm like, well, he's much better than any player we have. And I'm going to say much better. He's a genius. He's a Tekken genius.
I think these are certain things you have to keep in mind when you sort of say things like this. I think the best example of, you know, you have to keep in mind of times where, I guess the biggest mesh of American and EU that I can think of is probably the LCQ in 2018, right? A lot of American players came over for that, you know, Kaduko, Shadow, Peeling, like a lot of players came over for that one, a lot of their top players as well. And, you know, there was some results in there that were quite interesting. Like, for example, Just So You Know, who is probably an unknown outside of the UK, like not even within Europe known. He managed to beat Shadow.
Just So You Know takes it 2-1.
Very nice work.
You know, in their pool matches, and went on to win his pool. And also South America was brought up as well. But, you know, someone in chat said something like Abu Dhabi would free up EU. But, you know, Abu Dhabi got sent out of the tournament completely by EU. You know, Bode being the winners and Ru Kang being the losers. Like...
Was that just a random Twitch comment?
You know,
Oh, come on. Are you offended by this? It's just some random Twitch comment. Abel Del Maestro smokes all of you together. Come on. That's nothing to take off offense
Abu Dhabi
to.
got sent out of the tournament completely by EU. You know, Bode being the winners and then Ru Kang being the losers. Like, I guess...
But he probably would smoke everyone. Like, it's not guaranteed. He could face a Guni or a Kalak and he's like, oh, I don't get this guy's playstyle. Doesn't necessarily mean that Kalak or Guni is the better player. It's just that this certain playstyle, he can't cope with it and he loses. Or it's like, for those of you who don't know, check out Abel Del Maestro, some of his matches. He struggles a bit more in Tekken 7 due to Eddie being so bad, but he's a really, really strong player.
I guess
South America has a very strong scene.
the moral of the story here, what I want everyone to do is just, you know, do your research.
Man, this is a long video.
Like, know what you're talking about.
Do your research.
If you're
I feel like I
wrong,
did.
you'll get corrected for being wrong.
I'm not.
I think opinion is fine. Like, if you believe, you know, I think, you know, this guy isn't as good as this guy and stuff like that. You know, you want to have debates, that's cool. But, you know, there's a difference between just having an opinion, just being wrong. You know, because when American players, top American players have said these kind of things like, yes, I think EU as a region as a whole, these players are better than America. Like, you have to take their words are more important, you know what I mean?
I think they are being polite. I think when they come over here and get a microphone in their face, they're not going to say, we're better. Most people don't do that. Most people say, they pat you on the head and they say, oh, you guys are better. You guys are great. Oh, you barely kept a straight face, Naps. Did you mean what you said? It's like, come on, it's not controversial. They were being polite. And for the examples I gave previous, the US scene is superior. The average level is higher because you don't get monster players out of a vacuum. Monster players fight spar with other monsters. That's just the way it is. You push each other higher.
Like at the end of the day, I'm not going to be making any kind of arguments that, you know, EU is the best region, EU is way better than America. What we have to keep in mind is, yes, I do. The top American players are better than top EU players. I'll keep saying it, but it's not as if there's a huge gulf. It's not as if they're unbeatable, right?
It's like the gulf. It's not huge when you compare it to every other Tekken player who, you know, has bought Tekken 7. 6 million people. But the difference is just a tiny few percent. But in competitive play, that little difference translates into a pretty major difference. And yes, if you compare our players to the top US, there's no comparison.
It's not as if...
But again, for the 100th time, I'm not saying EU players are idiots. I'm saying we're 9 out of 10, and US players are 9.5.
We are just the worst players of Tekken imaginable, as some people like to make it seem.
Absolutely not, K-Wiz. Whoever said that is a bastard.
I'm saying the main man was making it seem that way, but he was closer toeing that line, which is why I feel like it's important to say these kind of things, right? Like, I think something the main man sort of did when he was making his argument was he sort of just judged America by their best, right? He was judging America by their Anakins, by their Jimmys, by their Joeys, and blah blah blah. Excuse me, and blah blah blah. I mean, he mentioned America
Joeys
many
and
times. You know, talking about
Anakins.
where Anakin finished the Evo and Combo Break and Tekken World Tour 5, blah blah blah. But he wasn't doing the same for Europe. Like, he wasn't judging Europe by our Sephi Black, by our Joe Plixes, by our Asims, by our Canes, etc.
I am. Those guys are great, but they are not Anakin, Naps, Majin, Fury, Cuddlecore, Speed Kicks, Shadow. It's like I don't feel it's controversial to say. I just don't.
And I think that
it's like Joey Fury pretty reliably has beaten JDCR with Paul. So what does that mean? Yeah, he knows. Paul has bad poking. Check out Joey Fury playing Paul. You know, his timing. There's a great set versus Kudans I watched on YouTube a few days ago, but his timing and spacing with Paul's counter hits, it's like it's pretty much Korean level. His timing is so strong, and his spacing. He dominates JDCR. It's like. And, you know, that's just Joey Fury. It's, I don't know why.
That's what creates the false narrative. You know, when you are looking at one region only by their best, and this is the region. Look, this is their players, and by the other one, you're like, yeah, but here are all the shit players, right? This guy does this guy's shit, that guy hop kicks for no reason, right? That's where the false narrative comes from. I think it's important to keep in mind if you are going to do that, right? Which I don't believe you should, but if you are, you have to keep it even. You have to judge them by the best. Even it seems like the main man just doesn't rate.
I thought that's what I did.
K-Wiz saying some very weird things about
Mickey Mouse
using built-in defense. That's the only reason he plays Yoshi. Blah blah blah. I'm paraphrasing, by the way. And Fergus, you know, Asuka just has, you know, just judging us by our characters and stuff. Like, I think is very, very odd. It's a very odd.
When I have a cold, I can do Mickey Mouse for some reason.
To do, like Kane and Trench is always a weird one to come at. You know, he's beaten Lohai in a first to 5.
If we punish Kane, one more hit. Let's go. There we go.
This is where K-Wiz gets definitely the point. I was being unfair to Kane and Trench.
I was there. I commentated it. And some of you may be saying, oh, but Lohai used Kazumi. One thing you have to keep in mind is Lohai didn't want to play Shaheen around this time. He didn't think Shaheen was good. He didn't want to play Shaheen. And if you think I'm lying...
The problem with these anecdotal... Oh, this player actually beat this top player. You know, this EU guy you haven't heard about? He beat that US top player. Or this, you know, hey, he beat Lohai. Yeah, it's remarkable. It's amazing. But what makes these competitive players so great is that they master all of the matchups, not only in terms of characters, but in play styles. So it's again this where low-high can beat 99% of players. But in that 1%, he's sort of weak to what Kane and Trench is doing right there and then. But it's like this. I hope you get the point I'm trying to make. Is Kane and Trench better than low-high because he beats him there? Does that mean that the skill gap isn't very big between low-high and Kane and Trench? And it's like, all I'm saying is, if you had Kane and Trench play against 1,000 amazing Tekken players, I think he beats maybe 900 of them, whereas low-high would beat 999 of them. Because that's what makes an amazing competitive player. You can beat many different play styles. Many different play styles. And occasionally losing to an EU top player does not mean that EU is on par or even close. You know, we win once in a while against the top players. And that's great. Imagine if we never did. I mean, that would be sad. But
you can look at that weekend was versus fighting and look at who he tried to play against Lee in grand finals before finally going to Sheen. He tried Steve.
Like Boa beating Arslan. You can make the comparison. But what I'm saying is that Boa is a great Tekken player. And that's what I'm saying about our EU guys. Amazing Tekken players. Amazing Tekken players. I would dare anyone to say that Sephi Black is a bad or average Tekken player. He's amazing. But he, to me, does not compare to the US gang. That's all I'm saying. There's, to me, no comparison.
He tried.
But now, again, I'm doing a competitive play analysis. Right. In the eyes of an average green rank player, Sephi Black and Anakin are both gods. Absolutely. They're both gods. But if we single out competitive play, Anakin is one step ahead.
I think it was just Steve and...
Don't be offended. It's my opinion. This is my opinion. Do not be offended by it. If you disagree, that's fine. That's fine.
Kazumi. Those are the two characters focused on. Steve and Kazumi. They didn't work when he had to go Shaheen. He finally won games with Sheen, and then I think that's when he started to realize, okay, Sheen's my best character. Gonna focus on Sheen. Like, I'm just preparing for any like counter arguments someone might make against me and stuff like that, right? But like even keeping in, you know, of the America versus EU theme, you know, you have, you know, Blackbeard's beaten Poke Chop in the Josie Mirror. Gunny got destroyed Jimmy J got destroyed 9 rounds straight by Gunny. Speakers also lost to Gunny. And you know, another thing people could say, oh, but that was a long time ago. You know, Jimmy, Poke Chop, these guys have leveled up since then. But it'd be foolish to assume that our players haven't also leveled up since then, right? Like, let's just keep everything fair. And you know, I'm just playing by the rules set by the debate beforehand. That's all I'm doing here, and I'm just trying to once again defend the region. Again, there is no beef here. There's no animosity. There is no drama. This is just me having a discussion about an opinion that I disagreed with. That is all. And I think it's important I do these things as well, because EU is just a region that doesn't get the recognition that it deserves and doesn't get the chance to get the recognition it deserves. Obviously, due to COVID, with there being no tournaments around, because there's just so many crazy players in the region that do not get, you know, any exposure. You know, like we have, you know, Schrodinger, that King player I played in the first of 10, crazy tech monster. You know, DBP, a German Bob plays, you know, beaten Saint.
Get off me, says DBP.
Yeah, it doesn't look too good for him.
Oh, and there's the swat. And another one. What's going on here? And another one.
3.
Oh. Oh.
No! Oh my God!
DBP.
Didn't Joe Felix also beat
really
Saint?
strong Gigas player as well, who's, you know, can make top 16 at Masters events. I think you know, it's just a weird thing to, you know, sort of do as well. One thing I also forgot to mention, you know, as well, you know, Joe Pelix, who is one of our top 5 players, or actually went to EVO and he got top 16, I believe. But why is what the exposure thing, the recognition is
Joe
like
Pelix
he got top 16 without a single game on stream, right? Like, this is just the kind of thing I'm talking about. Everything's so America centric, and I think it's just, you know, let us have our time to shine, please. Let us finally just get our chance to shine, and you'll see we're not just some random hot kick region. Okay, that's all I'm asking, please. That's all I'm asking. Like I'm not saying the main man had any kind of malicious intent here, but I think it was just very symptomatic of the way EU is perceived without any real evidence to back it up. So there, that's basically all there is on this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed. I'm free to debate in the comment section at some point. I'm kind of avoiding the comment section and stuff like this very recently just because I'm on my break, but you know, I feel like we can have a chat down there if you like, and subscribe because 10k is so close. Thanks for watching this video. The main man, if you happen to watch, there's no beef, just discussion of opinion, and yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Like I'll chat down there if you like.
Right. But so yeah, give us a chance, let us travel. Well, one Arslan travels to Tokyo. Oh, remember when Atif Butt and Avaisani together traveled to, was it Tokyo Masters? And they were playing each other in the grand finals. They beat everyone. So it's like, that's a 10 out of 10 region. How did the Pakistani region come about? Big arcade scene, offline, average level of play, very high. Because there's a lot of interest in the game. And King of Fighters. So a lot of people gather together and play together and learn from each other. Average level of play, high, high, high. And out of that comes God players. EU. People play online on free bars, Wi-Fi, and scream, "Boppity boopy, snake edgy, I blocky." Well, some people do. But that's why, you know, in EU, there's just no comparison. We have too few players. Too few players. And don't play offline arcade. US has had a big, healthy arcade scene. Lots of people playing offline. There's a big interest in fighting games. I mentioned the grassroots movements, starting tournaments all over the United States. You can check my YouTube statistics. There's a huge interest in Tekken. There's a huge interest from Pakistan in Tekken. I get a lot of viewers from that country. But EU, it's not amazing. So, and, you know, South Koreans watch my videos. So it's like, it's an unfair comparison due to how different the audiences are, or the market is, US to Europe. But I can only land in with everything I've said, but it is not controversial to say that we have great players in Europe, but the US players are stronger than ours, or even way stronger. And the average level of play is stronger in the US. Even though Naps said, you guys are better. Or even if some guy, some European guy beat a top player. Some guy beat this top player. It's, to me, that doesn't change the overall bigger picture. But I really hope no one's offended. It's like, it's my opinion alone. If you disagree, that's fine. But I certainly feel like I base my opinion on observations and, well, dare I say, statistics. So I don't feel it was completely out of left field. Yeah, if you're gonna say that EU doesn't get the recognition it deserves, I feel like that's the same for some of the US top players. But it's also up to us to create a big, healthy scene, I guess. You know, when all of the money is in the US, I mean, why would Bandai Namco or other big companies want to come here? But yeah, it's an interesting conversation for sure. But I do, he definitely had a... That's where I can say I was in the wrong. I should not have said that Kane and Trench relies on built-in defense, bunga bunga, because I've never ever said that about him prior. It was a clumsy formulation. It was not a video recording for me. I was just blurting out stuff as I was playing Tekken. And Kane and Trench is a very fundamentally oriented Yoshi. He's very inspirational. Did that make sense? I hope it did.